It's a given that when the economy hits a rough patch, it's the auction house that thrives.
Sold 3,700.
We're starting to see some newer items come through the auction that we probably wouldn't have got in the past.
Some of which has come straight from the dealership because there aren't enough customers walking into stores. But buyers have shown up here looking for a deal.
It should be fairly cheap because there's a lot of people out of work selling their stuff.
Trying to offload equipment they either can't afford to keep or because they need the cash to pay for the basics. Unlike those operating in the oil patch, the Alberta government can't turn to the auction block when it's strapped for money, which is why another certainty of a downturn is the resurfacing of that old provincial debate. Would you support a sales tax in Alberta?
Not really, no. I think I got enough taxes already.
Do you think this province should have a sales tax?
No. We're paying enough as it is. Paying enough tax.
That's one of the good things about living in Alberta. I mean, you look at all the other provinces and you have to pay double the tax, right?
The amount Canadians pay in PST varies across the country, from 5% in Saskatchewan to 10% in Nova Scotia. Alberta is the only province without a sales tax, but at one time it was the first province with one. The year was 1936. Alberta's new social credit government was scrambling to deal with mounting debt. Experts recommended a sales tax, so the government brought one in at 2%. It was then cancelled the following year. Fast forward 80 years later, there are new experts giving the same advice.
We need to have this discussion.
Irgata Farida is an economics professor and was one of 20 academics who wrote an open letter to the province earlier this year. The group called on the government to do the right, if unpopular thing, and introduce a sales tax.
If you ask individuals, do you like to pay more taxes, people say no. But we have to, what are the other options? What other options do we have? How can we come out of this problem?
Good question. It's certainly been asked.
Are there any new revenue measures you're considering at this point?
Well, if I will maybe jump to a revenue measure you haven't addressed, the one we do not name, there will be no PST.
And just like that, Alberta's NDP government continued a provincial tradition.
I'm saying no, there will be no sales tax.
Listen to my words. It is not on the table.
I'm not examining a sales tax at all. I'm not examining a sales tax even peripherally.
It's a debate and deflection that emerges every time a new government comes in, and political cartoonist Malcolm Mays has sketched it through the years.
Redford wanted to raise the sales tax, but she couldn't. Prentice wanted to raise the sales tax, but he couldn't. And now Rachel Notley's government would like to raise the sales tax, but she can't.
Because polls show that the vast majority of Albertans are against it.
I think any government that brings it in will be defeated in the following election. Alberta look at people in Ontario and people in other provinces like they're foolish. You know, they let their politicians just take money. They're like sheep that are shorn every year.
Alberta's PST-free status remains a source of pride, an integral part of what's been billed as the Alberta Advantage. But Jack Mintz says that simply isn't the case.
Okay, well, I think that Alberta not having a sales tax actually has created an Alberta tax disadvantage, not an advantage at all. Because what it does is it has actually limited a very important source of revenue that the province could have that actually has the least damaging impact on the economy.
Mintz is a renowned economist, and he's been preaching the idea of a harmonized sales tax in the province for years. He says if Alberta were to raise its sales tax to 4%, the hike would bring in about $4 billion. Instead, he says the government has opted to increase other taxes.
It no longer has the lowest corporate income tax rate. In fact, there's now 3 other provinces that have lower corporate income tax rates. It no longer has the lowest personal income tax rate. And if somebody is choosing between BC and Alberta, I think they take the ocean view.
Arguably, there are many who probably prefer this province's western roots. But Mintz says at some point Albertans have to realize that in order to pay for public services like hospitals and schools, there needs to be a stable source of revenue. For now, low energy prices not only have industry scrambling, but the province too. Just how the government will deal with its $10 billion deficit is unclear, but what is certain, any plan won't include talk of a sales tax. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Edmonton.